Supreme Cannon. Some of you have seen me already, obviously. So the bad news is I won't be calling in tonight, but that's a break for some of you. Mike asked me to come and help out tonight. I just happened to be in town, so here I am. Nice to see you. So, I'll put on my goggles. Let's have a look here. Italy imposes strict lockdown and outbreak hotspots. Remember what I said last week, Mike, about an economic STD? Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. You have an outbreak in China, and less than 2 months later, there's dead people in Italy. This was inevitable. Something was going to happen sooner or later. We thought it would be monetary. We thought it would be some kind of economic, explosion. Well, apparently this is the trigger that sets off the powder keg. I don't know, and neither do you. But the response is that zero hedge. Are you financially prepared for something like this? Having to go home and stay there for a while. Well, there's not panic in the streets. Ironically enough, it's everybody and their dog's fleas having to get off the streets and get inside and stay out of the way, either to prevent getting this corona cerveza bug, let's call it, or not to give it to other people, right? Like, this is something that no one was prepared for. This was completely out of left field. 61.5% of coronavirus patients with severe pneumonia won't survive. So what percentage are going to get pneumonia? What makes them the most vulnerable to it? I think being older, Mike. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably having a weakened immune system, right? So you've got a lot of people who have had immune deficient disorders, or maybe they're HIV positive, or they got something else. We don't know. We don't actually know what immune capabilities will be diminished enough that this thing can literally take you out. We're not sure. We're not getting a lot of straight answers. All we know is it's spreading like wildfire. And like I said before, it's like a viral version of Johnny Appleseed. Like, you're spreading seed everywhere you go, and you don't even know you've got it. And the people that you gave it to don't know you have it. It's going to be very difficult to pinpoint where it's going from place to place. I think the media they're doing the best they can, because if they sound the alarm too quickly and it turns out to be a dud, they're going to lose whatever credibility they have left. And they don't have a lot, at least to half the population now. So they don't really have a choice. Where governments are concerned, it's the same thing. If you engender some kind of supply chain breakdown or a literal economic collapse, when everything is balancing on a quaking marsh as it is, over something that turns out to be nothing, you're going to be the bad guy no matter what. So they don't have a lot of choice. Where the Chinese are concerned, yeah, they have to be draconian. They don't have a choice. Like I said last week, this got away on them. By the time somebody made it plain that this was a crisis, yeah, there you go. That map had cute little red spots here and there on it just a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 78,766, and for all we know, there's a couple of zeros missing from that number. We don't know, and I'm not trying to be apocalyptic. This is something that most people are going to survive, as far as we can tell.
We were gauging South Korea for a while, remember?
Yeah.
And it was at 52?
Yeah. So now it's at 600. I've got to put my goggles back on. 556 confirmed cases in South Korea. Now, that assumes that the unlimited availability of test kits, which is not a given. And in some cases, it appears that they've had false positives as well. False negatives, so people walk out with the virus, and false positives of people who were told they had it and went home or isolated themselves, and it turns out didn't have it. So good for them, but still, it must have been a little scary for them and their families for a while. Honestly, most of them are still in mainland China, but you look at the globe, you look at where this thing has gone, and even if people completely isolate themselves, for a lot of them, all they had to do is walk through a Walmart, and it's too late. It's everywhere. And again, we're not talking the Andromeda strain. We're talking about something that most people are going to survive. But the fatality rate, depending on the demographic it's going through, could be upwards of 10%. That's apocalyptic. That's a bad scene. So we'll go back to the cost of COVID-19 quarantine. Will you be financially prepared? This is something that we've been hammering on. Mike's been hammering on this for a long time, obviously. And for the last year or so, I've been participating. You want some money put away. You want some supplies put away. And it's not necessarily for a monetary collapse. It's some kind of economic disruption like this, where you need to go home and stay there for a while. And in this case, it's a real deal. It's not because there's mobs of zombies on the street. It's because either you're trying to keep from getting this cerveza thing on you, or you're trying to keep from giving it to someone else, which is just a good neighbor policy. As the world tries frantically to contain a rapidly spreading outbreak of COVID-19, schools, public venues, tourist attractions, and workplaces are being closed in an attempt to keep even more people from contracting the illness. Quarantines and self-isolation protocols are also being instituted across the globe for those who may have been exposed. How many quarantine spaces realistically are there in the world? Any idea? You probably don't know either, hey? No. Look at the number of hospitals the Chinese are building. They're building all these new hospitals, these field hospitals, like the first couple that they slammed together, those big white Legos. It's not just a matter of, they're saying it's under control. Well, what if that was true? Well, they still got a lot of sick people. They know a month from now they're going to have even more sick people. They got to have somewhere to go. So they need isolation centers. Maybe they have contained it. If you put 750,000 people, 10% of the world's population in lockdown for a month, yeah, you're going to whack this thing in the shins somewhat. You're gonna prune it back a little bit anyway.
Okay, let them know this is the top 10 worst pandemics in recorded history.
Okay, here are the 10 worst pandemics in history by staff. I guess we'll be the staff tonight. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and scroll that, my friend.
Right here.
HIV/AIDS pandemic at its peak, 2005 to 2012. Now, this was definitely an STD because the first identified in the Congo. It's killed 36 million people. Blood transfusions, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. There were lots of people because there was no identification for it.
Bear aspirin?
Yeah, bear aspirin.
Yep, they were caught. I don't know. I could show you to you.
Okay.
A lot of people won't believe me.
That's news to me. Yeah, I didn't know that. Well, that's the thing. There were ways that it wasn't properly screened for, and it killed innocent people. So that's not a moral judgment. It's just that's how most of it was transmitted, was either dirty needles or unusual cases here. Yeah, it paid millions in HIV infection cases, just not in English. Okay, well, that makes sense. HIV contaminated blood products to hemophiliacs, thousands of whom later died of AIDS. Yeah, so that's the thing. They either weren't screening for it properly, or they weren't aware that it existed, at least at first.
Do you remember the AIDS scare back in the day?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Everybody was just scared to touch anybody, and it was just... Wow.
Yeah. There was Bob Rivers' Twisted Tunes. You remember those? They used to write the satiric songs. There was actually one about, hello, I love you, let's get tested for AIDS. Mm-hmm. You had to wait for the results to come back. It was actually getting to the point where they were proposing that when you met someone in a nightclub or at a bar, you had a copy of your latest test results that you could show the nice people so that... they could decide if they were going to proceed with you or not. Kind of like getting consent now, right? Same idea. You've got a whole triplicate paperwork you got to fill out to hit up somebody at the club anymore.
Okay, read it out.
Okay, HIV, death toll, 36 million. Next, flu pandemic, 1968. There was a 1 million death toll from influenza. Category 2, flu pandemic, sometimes referred to as the Hong Kong flu. It was caused by the H3N2 strain of the influenza A virus, a genetic offshoot of the H2N2 subtype. From the first reported case on July 13, 1968 in Hong Kong, it took only 17 days before outbreaks of the virus were reported in Singapore and Vietnam, and within 3 months had spread to the Philippines, India, Australia, Europe, and the United States. Sounds familiar. While the 1968 pandemic had a comparatively low mortality rate, 5%, it still resulted in the deaths of more than 1 million people, including 500,000 residents of Hong Kong, approximately 15% of its population at the time. Mm-hmm. Good Lord.
Yep, I didn't even know about that one. Here's this one.
I didn't know about that one, the Hong Kong flu. The Asian flu, 56 to 58. Sorry, I got to put the goggles back on. Asian flu was a pandemic outbreak of influenza A. Death toll, 2 million. 2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a product of travel, international trade, all of those wonderful things that make, that's why we have bananas and kiwis to eat. All those things are good. Unfortunately, it also results in a situation like this where something gets into the air and it travels around the world at jet aircraft speed. Mm-hmm. And yeah, 1 million people can be dead in a year from something that originated on the other side of the globe. Mm-hmm. It's a hazard. It's as long as there's any kind of trade, as long as there's any incentive to trade, this is going to be a hazard. And unfortunately, we've reached a point where the trade has become a little too, quote unquote, promiscuous. And now this kind of thing it could be a regular occurrence. We hope not. There's going to be a backlash anyway. Asian flu, 2 million. Asian flu, pandemic outbreak of influenza A, H2N2 again. I'll just skim through that. 2-year spree. It went from the Chinese province of Guizhou to Singapore, Hong Kong, and the U.S. Estimates for the death toll vary depending on the source, but the WHO places the final tally at about 2 million deaths. And okay,
69,000 in the U.S. alone.
Yeah, yeah, that's disastrous. That would be considered a public health crisis in the U.S. if 70,000 people died of the influenza today. So that's a particularly bad one. Now the Spanish flu and
the flu pandemic.
The flu pandemic, yeah, it didn't originate in Spain. That was just the first place that reported it, as I understand correctly. Death toll 20 to 50 million. So between 1918 and 1920, just after the end of the Great War, which of course resulted in a lot of disease and there was a lot of death and a lot of people moving from place to place around the world. It was a global war.
I think it's in the trenches. It was so dirty.
The trenches were dirty. It was a nasty experience, yeah. And there were probably a lot of unburied corpses that didn't help. Mm-hmm. So death toll, 20 to 50 million. So between 1918 and 1920. Important to note.
What was the population of the world in 1918?
I don't think it was 2 billion.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it was a billion to 1.5 billion, I believe, at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between 1918 and 1920, a disturbingly deadly outbreak of influenza tore across the globe, infecting over a third of the world's population and ending the lives of 20 to 50 million people. Now, that's over 2 years. What separated the 18 flu pandemic from others was the victims, where influenza had always previously only killed juveniles and the elderly or already weakened patients. It had begun striking down hardy and completely healthy young adults while leaving children and those with weaker immune systems still alive. That's true. That's a strange one about that. There were a lot of demobilizing soldiers that were coming back from the wars who were 19, 20 years old. And they'd get a headache in the morning and by supper time they were dead. Just like that. Over. Why it would work that way and that randomly, I can't imagine. It just seems to me that there must have been something about a stronger immune system that gave them a stronger reaction. Because it doesn't necessarily mean children and those with weakened immune systems weren't full of the stuff. It's just for whatever reason, it didn't react with their immune system because they had less of one. Someone mentioned the idea of a cytokine storm a couple of Saturdays ago, like from 5G or from the vaccinations or that sort of thing. So maybe that's probably what it was. It was something along that line. Someone with a more robust immune system would be more vulnerable than someone who maybe the bug just filled them up for a while and hung out and then it just died off. Hard to say.
And then we got...
Okay, we got two more here.
The sixth cholera pandemic from 1910 to 1911.
Okay.
So that kind of trails into that.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
It trails in, so
yeah,
800,000.
You've got another outbreak.
Is it possible that this could have been a mutation of this and then come back as this?
I think they're a different thing entirely. I'm not sure that cholera is actually a virus.
That's like a draconian, like middle age virus.
Well, yeah. It's cholera's. Yeah, most plagues I think were cholera in the old days, other than the Bubonic Plague. I have no idea what the hell that thing was. Mm-hmm. So that one was 800,000, and that was the beginning of the 20th century. The sixth cholera pandemic originated in India, like most of the other ones did, before spreading to the Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe, and Russia. Yeah, public hygiene is a problem. It's an accelerant for this stuff, there's no doubt. There's railroads in India where they've got something called, I think it's called feculation, where there's so much human feces on the tracks that they're literally starting to rust apart. Culture is a powerful accelerant for disease too. You can remember hearing stories about how people lived in Europe in the Middle Ages, Mike. You know, and they threw their chamber pots out in the street in the morning and their kitchen garbage, and there was pigs running around eating it all. It must have been pretty gamey most of the time. Unfortunately, it was just absolutely it was like a bucket of gasoline just waiting for a match. And so something like that should not be possible today unless it was weaponized. Public hygiene was becoming a concern by the beginning of the 20th century. So something like that originating in India, and then it made it into Eastern Europe and Russia. Only 11 deaths occurred in the U.S. Yeah, and there was isolation. It was quarantine. That's why I said what the Chinese doing right now, there's no problem with it. The only problem is that they should have done it about a month to 6 weeks earlier than they did. But there's political and economic consequences for that too. And if you're wrong, the problem is if you do that and you don't have an outbreak, then you look like you were panicking for nothing. The best possible outcome is this thing doesn't happen, but if it doesn't happen, then someone's going to accuse you of overreacting. And we're talking about communist China. Being wrong could get you shot. Yeah. So this kind of thing, right?
Being right could get you shot.
Being right could get you shot too. Yeah. Anything could get you shot. So sometimes it's better to just wait and find someone else to blame it on, right?
Lower Scratchers weighing in saying more South Korea cases in the coronavirus in the last 2 days. So more South Korea. Yeah, we covered that. Brother John has said Supreme Canon, but he sounds a bit different. Must be the mic. Nice to put a face to the great voice.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's keep going.
I got the face for radio. I got the voice for radio. So I've got the double package. I'm good to go here.
Double package.
Double package. You betcha.
All right, here we go. The flu pandemic, 1889 to 1890.
Yeah. Death toll 1 million. Cause influenza. Originally the Asiatic flu, or Russian flu, as it was called, this strain was thought to be an outbreak of the influenza A virus subtype H2N2. Though recent discoveries have instead found the cause to be the influenza A virus subtype H3N8. The first cases were observed in May 1889 in 3 separate and distant locations: Bukhara in Central Asia, Turkestan, Athabasca in northwestern Canada, and Greenland. Rapid population growth of the 19th century, specifically in urban areas, only helped the flu spread, and before long the outbreak had spread across the globe. And that's traveling at steamship speed.
Right.
Though it was the first true epidemic in the area of bacteriology and much was learned from it, in the end, the 1889 to 1890 flu pandemic claimed the lives of over 1 million individuals. Sadly, most public hygiene, most of the things we know about infectious diseases and their prevention and their containment were paid for in human life. Wow. Just like everything else. These are millions of people that could have been alive today. Well, they wouldn't have been alive, obviously, from that time. But there are a lot of people that, their descendants aren't with us today because they didn't catch things like this in time. Some of it was neglect. A lot of it was ignorance. They didn't know. You had to learn. But by this time, you had a scientific establishment that was working hard to identify things like this. And there were probably still distant, ancestral memories of the Black Death. Certainly it was regularly taught history in most schools. It probably isn't now just because it's been so long ago. Yeah, but there's a lot to learn. The third cholera pandemic, 1852 to 1860. This was during the times of the
Napoleonic.
Napoleon III.
Yeah,
that'd be the reign of Napoleon III. Yeah, this was when India was part of the British Empire, the Raj. Mm-hmm. Death toll 1 million. Cause cholera. Oh boy, here we go again. Generally considered the most deadly of the 7 cholera pandemics, the third major outbreak of cholera in the 19th century lasted from 1852 to 1860. Like the first and second pandemics, the third cholera pandemic originated in India, spreading from the Ganges River Delta before tearing through Asia, Europe, North America, and Africa, and ending the lives of over 1 million people. British physician John Snow, while working in a poor area of London, tracked cases of cholera.
Snow?
John Snow.
John Snow.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
All right, I'll continue. While working in a poor area of London, tracked cases of cholera and eventually succeeded in identifying contaminated water as the means of transmission for the disease. Unfortunately, the same year as its discovery, 1854, went down as the worst year of the pandemic, in which 23,000 people died in Great Britain. That would be a national scandal now. That would be a public disaster. Death was at your right shoulder the whole time in those days because of working conditions, because of sanitation or the lack thereof, the crushingly hard work that most people had to do to survive. You can see a lot of parallels from those days in today, and you could see that there are a lot of people in other parts of the world that are living and working in conditions similar to what our direct ancestors were working in during the beginning of industrialization. I'm hoping that the outcome for them will be similar to what it's been for us, rather than the other way around, where we wind up finding ourselves back in that situation. I'm optimistic. I'm guardedly optimistic, because we can always vote them out or shoot them if it came to that. Can I say that on this channel?
Yes, you can.
Once. I'll use the word shoot once. Good enough. Okay.
Okay, let's go. The big one.
All
Elizabeth,
right.
This is the big one.
This is the big one. The big one, Elizabeth. The Black Death, 1346 to 1353. Yeah.
That's almost like a quarter of the world's population.
This is a change. This changed everything. Death toll 75 to 200 million. Caused the Bubonic Plague. From 1346 to 1353, an outbreak of the plague ravaged Europe, Africa, and Asia, with an estimated death toll between 75 and 200 million people. Thought to have originated in Asia, the plague most likely jumped continents via the fleas living on the rats that so frequently lived aboard merchant ships. Ports being major urban centers at the time were the perfect breeding ground for the rats and fleas, and thus the insidious bacterium flourished, devastating 3 continents in its wake. Yeah, an absolute tragedy. After that time, the word quarantine comes from the Latin for 40 days. When ships came into Venice, merchant ships from anywhere in the world, there was an island that they had to anchor near for 40 days before they could come into port and unload. And that was to ensure that they weren't bringing sickness with them. And if there was sickness, then they could deal with it before the ships were unloaded. That's a hell of a long time to be sitting in harbor without moving on. But that's the cost of doing business sometimes. And people got used to it because they got really, really tired of losing so many people to things that were preventable. Obviously, that would get tiresome really quickly. And now, for the population of the world in the 14th century, that's a catastrophe. But
that's like a quarter of the world's population.
It's something like a quarter of the world's population at that time, yeah. Yeah, no joke at all. Absolutely disastrous. But this, in many ways, would proportionally have been worse. The Plague of Justinian, 1541, or 541 to 542 AD.
25 million.
25 million. And
that could be half the world's population.
That could be, yeah, a large part of it.
541.
Easily 10% of the world's population at that time. Bubonic Plague again. Thought to have killed perhaps half the population of Europe. The Plague of Justinian was an outbreak of the Bubonic Plague that afflicted the Byzantine Empire and Mediterranean port cities, killing up to 25 million people in its year-long reign of terror. Generally regarded as the first recorded incident of the Bubonic Plague, the Plague of Justinian left its mark on the world, killing up to a quarter, there you go, up to a quarter of the population of the Eastern Mediterranean and devastating the city of Constantinople, where at its height it was killing an estimated 5,000 people per day and eventually resulting in the deaths of 40%.
5,000 people per day?
Yeah, eventually resulting in the deaths of 40% of the city's population. Yeah.
5,000 deaths per day?
5,000 deaths per day in one city. I don't think you see death rates like that again until like the siege of Leningrad. There were probably that many people dying of starvation and frostbite during the siege of Leningrad. A disastrous.
And the last but not least?
Yeah, the Antonine Plague. Yeah, we're almost done here. This litany of horror and sorrow is almost over.
Hold on. This one here is one of the worst only because at 165 AD, 5 million of the world's population is a lot. In 165 AD.
Definitely, yeah.
It hits harder because
yeah,
we probably had a population.
Well, Rome and its territories at that time, like Rome and its immediate surroundings, had a population of close to 4 million. Mm-hmm. It was a superpower. Rome and the area around it was a superpower. all by itself. And of course, it was vulnerable to fire, disease, and all kinds of nonsense. But they had actual sanitation. So they had at least a snowball's chance of preventing the worst things from happening. The greatest medical breakthroughs are better nutrition and the sewer pipe.
So
95% of the problems that you have in life, you get rid of those two problems, and you're golden. Usually
98 million was the population. Right?
98 million.
So 5 million of that is huge.
Yeah, that's 5% of the world's population. 5% of the world's population today would be what, Mike? It'd be about 400 million people, wouldn't it? A 20th?
Yeah, about that much.
Yeah, let's not have that. What do you think? Are you with me there?
I'm with you.
Solidarity,
high five,
people.
high five.
Let's not have 5% of the world's population die this time. I'm good with that. The Antonine Plague, 165 A.D. Death toll 5 million, cause unknown. Also known as the Plague of Galen. The Antonine Plague was an ancient pandemic that affected Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece, and Italy, and is thought to have been either smallpox or measles, though the true cause is still unknown. This unknown disease was brought back to Rome by soldiers, there's imperialism again, returning from Mesopotamia around 165 AD. Unknowingly, they had spread a disease which would end up killing over 5 million people and decimating the Roman army. Well.
That's huge.
There's a difference between tourism and this kind of thing, right? Economic imperialism or military imperialism. It's always a matter of you're going to go take somebody else's stuff or go live among them.
All right. So let's continue here. Where were you? Right here. Hey, go through the summary if you want.
Okay, we're going to go through the summary quickly. Thanks for bearing with us. We're going to try to find some light sides to this too, guys. We're gonna Gold's up.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah, that's right.
Can you do a woo?
Woo!
Well, yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, that's why I type it.
Woo!
Yeah. Woo. South Korea reports 123 new cases, 1 new death.
That's huge.
Yeah, for that many to be confirmed in what, a week?
Not even.
That's less than a week.
That's like 48 hours.
Yeah, and remember, these are the ones that are showing symptoms for the most part. They're the ones that are going to get tested, which speaks nothing of who's walking around carrying the cerveza bug today, right now. Mm-hmm. Italy announces 79 cases, declares national emergency. Northern Italy put on lockdown. There you go. That's the time to go on lockdown. But the reason that they have the political ability to do that is because of the disaster unfolding in China right now. Otherwise, they might have reasons to hold off until they got a more conclusive evidence. Japan cases triple in a week to 121. Japan confirms seriously ill patient in Tokyo. Not good news for that person. Hubei reports daily numbers. Chinese scientists find virus in urine, which is usually sterile.
Yeah,
if I recall.
It's sulfur.
Yeah, that's so not cool. That's not cool at all. Experts propose 27-day quarantine, say 14 days, likely not long enough. Cases outside China go exponential. Absolutely no reason to doubt that would happen. 32 UK and European citizens arrived back in UK on evacuation flight. Outbreak reported in South Korean psychiatric ward. WHO team visits Wuhan. Will give Monday press conference. The conference from ground zero. Iran reports 10 new cases. Deaths climb to 6.
All right, let's stop right there.
Okay.
Look at the ratio. 10 cases, 6 deaths. What? WTF?
Yeah, well,
that's serious.
That's not total cases, though. That's cases active to the total, but
10 reported cases.
Yeah.
But 6 died.
Yeah,
that's a big deal, because that ratio does not look like
it's
other countries.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, the way they wrote that, it's not a good look. But I'm not sure how many total cases there are in Iran right now. If there's a couple of hundred, then 6 is.
Right now.
It's still a bad number. These are people that wouldn't be dead if not for the cerveza bug.
Let's find out right now. Iran.
Yeah. Let's head over to Iran.
Macau, France.
Yeah, you would have to. Glorious Persia. Where is it here?
Iran's right here.
Yeah, Iran's there. Confirmed 28, deaths 5.
That's a very bad. Nobody recovered.
Yeah.
No one recovered.
Not so far, no.
So,
no.
28 to 5 ratio, that's dangerous.
Oh, that's a bad scene. That's a really bad scene, yeah. Yeah, it's between 5 and 8% fatality.
We're going to get German Instincts on the phone right now.
Hello, how you doing, Mike?
Hey, fella. It's Supreme.
Hey, how you doing, Supreme?
Good. I'm on. I'm hosting Mike's show tonight for a little while.
He's commenting.
Yeah,
Oh, he's commenting. Okay, good.
So yeah, no, there was a leak we had from Iran,
Yeah.
and a doctor said there was 20 people already dead in his clinic.
Okay.
This was days ago, and then he said,
where was that? Sorry.
This is in Iran.
In Iran. Okay. Okay.
So his doctor was basically explaining that he'd already had 20 people dead in his clinic.
Okay.
His relative had already died, and then he was telling the person on the phone basically to barricade themselves in their house, don't go outside, blah, blah, blah. It was like pretty much panicking, right?
Right.
And
right.
then there was a bunch of people in the Middle East commenting and whatnot. So, and this was the very same day that we had news that Iran said that 2 new patients, and then there was 2 dead people. Okay. So what we believe, and then fast forward 2 more days, and then Iran is now saying it's all across the country. And then fast forward a couple hours, and then we find out that someone that was coming back from Iran, vacating or visiting home in Iran,
right.
will confirm to have the disease in BC. So what I'm basically leading at here is that there's a high probability that the Iranian government is covering it up right now because they're going through an election cycle, and they don't want to shut that down. Not to mention the fact that how could it be so widespread from Tehran all over the country, and then so all it takes is someone to visit Iran right now, and they're coming back with the disease. I don't know what the statistical chances of that happening.
That seems pretty unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we also believe that
Iran shuts schools. Oh,
tell them to hold up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on for a second, Leaf. Iran shuts schools, cultural centers as coronavirus kills 6. Coronavirus deaths in Iran count for the most in any country outside China.
Go ahead, Leaf.
Yeah. Go ahead, Leaf.
So, we're believing that either 2 things could be happening, because we know this particular disease targets ACE2 receptors. ACE2 receptors. I'm mispronouncing it, but I digress. It targets that.
Yeah.
Asian males have a large chunk of that, and it affects females less. But what data we were gathering is Islamic people, Persian people.
Right.
Yeah, ACE2 receptors. Yeah, Middle Eastern people, Arabs, they have even higher amount of that. So there's a possibility this virus is more lethal to them than it would be the Asians. Or the second the theory right now is it's mutated. The one in Iran is mutated already, and it's much more lethal.
Okay, I'm just going to interject for a second, Leaf. Okay, from the Jerusalem Post, Iran's government and media lied about coronavirus outbreak, riots erupt. The quotation is, even the hospital medical staff, some of whom are infected with the coronavirus, are terrified.
Yes, in
Sorry,
Iran.
go ahead.
And now let's go over to Korea. I don't know if people have been paying attention, but there was a church that basically had just last year set up a branch, a cult, right? I'm not even going to call the thing a church. It's a cult.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of charismatic churches over there. It's kind of Pentecostal times 1,000.
The same cult that spread the disease from Korea that's causing all this explosion now also just built a church in Wuhan last year, and then they deleted that from their website. Now, CNN and mainstream news has already confirmed this and picked it up. I'm just throwing that out there, as we don't know. Like, there's another theory out there that maybe this is where the accidental release came from the call.
Well,
maybe
okay. I'm just gonna interject for a second. From CNBC Health and Science, coronavirus live updates. China reports 648 new cases, infections in South Korea spike. That's updated 16 minutes ago.
So in Korea, they had a couple of cases, but then all of a sudden they had a ginormous spike, and then it jumped from, I believe it was like 20 or 18 all the way up another 30. For the last 5 days, it's been basically doubling every day. We're expecting there to be probably about 800 projected by tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it started out as around 18, then it jumped by 30, then it jumped by another 60, then it jumped from like 120 to all the way to 200 plus. Then 200, we reached 400. Now today we're sitting at 550, but we're thinking, like I said, by tomorrow it'll probably be around 800. It's doubling on a daily, and it's rapidly rapidly increasing way faster on that cruise ship.
It does seem to be spreading like a gasoline fire there. Sorry to interrupt you for a second, Leaf. All times below Beijing time. This is a live blog. 12:05 p.m. Beijing time. Man in Hubei didn't show symptoms until 27 days later. Hubei's government on Saturday said a 70-year-old man did not show any symptoms until 27 days later, though he was infected with the coronavirus. That suggests the incubation period could be longer than 14 days. Well, obviously.
Let's go back to 40 days, like you said.
Yeah, we're going back to 40 days. Quarantine, 40-day quarantine. Everybody go home for 40 days. Who in the entire developed world is ready to do that?
Originally, they said 7 days.
The answer is small, I'm sure.
Originally, it was 7 days quarantine.
7 days,
then
yeah.
we upped it to 14.
Yeah.
Then this month we found out 21, but we just recently had a reported case of someone getting infected who showed no signs for 34 days.
Yeah. So we're to the point now. I have heard someone throw a number around of someone carrying it for 42 days. So 28 would be an absolute minimum, I would think.
This thing's a
28 days. And even then, you've probably got some kind of follow-up testing to make sure you're clear of it. But even when you're clear of it, there's no point in going back outside unless everyone else around you is clear of it too. Because it sounds like if you get it again, it's going to hammer you twice as hard as it might have the first time. So that's a hazard as well. Yeah, we're going to, I don't know. I'm standing on the outside looking in, obviously, on a lot of this stuff myself. But I think that by the time this becomes a full raging crisis around the world, they're going to tell everyone to go home for 40 days. Like, literally get off the street. How are you going to do that, though? That's the problem. And how would you enforce it?
Martial law.
Martial law, yeah.
Welding the door shut.
Well, yeah, welding doors shut, right, yeah. Yeah, the problem is you've got people now that are not used to, you can't get them to do things that they normally would do. And now you're going to tell them to stay inside. We're not prepared, I think, to exercise that kind of violence or potential violence in this part of the world anymore.
The Army's done it in Iraq. They'll do it here, no problem. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
But what was it? The CDC has already said containment and chances of containment are already low. The CDC, the American CDC, doesn't believe that they can contain it. We have the FBI this week said they want, and within 7 days they're mandating private companies give us masks, blah de blah, hand sanitizer and supplies within a week. We're not asking. They're not saying we're going to purchase. We're saying we are requisiting off your private company, have it in a week or else. This is the FBI.
Yeah.
So breaking loose right now, and the government agencies in the U.S. are scrambling. The U.S. military is prepping right as we speak. The CDC, like I said, they don't believe that they can contain this thing anyways. They don't think it's going to be contained, and they do expect outbreaks.
I'm wondering if they're getting to the point where they'll say, well, we're going to forget about trying to contain it and just prepare for a mass casualty event instead. Is this the one we wanted to read here, Mike?
Just read this headline.
Okay, all right. This is from Al Jazeera. Iraq extends ban on Iran arrivals amid coronavirus fears. And from the New York Times, coronavirus spreads as new cases double in South Korea. So this is getting to be front page mainstream news, that there is something spreading like a wildfire. The funny thing is, I'm not seeing lineups of people going to get supplies yet. So either they don't know, because who reads the New York Times anymore anyway,
or they
right?
think their government's going to save them.
Or they think their government's going to save them, right? Or maybe those aromatherapy and essential oils will solve the problem. And I'm not saying that they can't solve problems, but the best way to avoid a punch is just not be there. You know what I mean? Coronavirus, this is from the Guardian, the good old Graniad. Coronavirus, northern Italian towns close schools and business. Yeah, Lombardy and Veneto regions cluster of infections.
Have you heard about the plague train? That's what they're calling it now on the internet. They're calling it because they're calling the Diamond Princess, that was a plague ship.
Yeah.
Now they're saying there's an Italian plague train where everyone's trapped on the train.
Oh.
Which is even worser conditions and more cross-infection hell.
A plague train. That's beautiful.
Yeah, people were talking about making a meme. They'll replace Corona Chan's face over Thomas the train's face and start spreading that on the internet.
Isn't this fun, guys? It's so much fun.
Well, the thing about it, in this way, these people who are trapped on the train, that's much worse quarantine conditions than your own private cabin on a cruise ship.
Well, obviously,
you're stuck sitting next to somebody
you're
who's
stuck. If you didn't have it, you're going to, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's awful. It's awful. I can't imagine the panic that some of these people are trying to suppress. It's got to be absolutely claustrophobic because you think you've got something that it might be a sniffle for a day or two and you're gone, or you might not leave the ship alive. It's one or the other, somewhere in that scale, that spectrum. Well, I'm going to feel a little sick for a day or two, or I'm going to be dead, right? 5 to 10% of the time. It's not a matter of using apocalyptic language or a matter of being unnecessarily upsetting. This is serious business. The time to act on this is basically already a couple of weeks ago. So, but today is the next best. We've been telling people to prepare for a long time for all kinds of things, right? Go ahead, Leaf. Sorry.
If you were going to get gas mask and mask, you should have done that 2 weeks ago. Good luck getting that now.
Ideally. Yeah. There's something that, I mean, the thing about the market is, and all of this globalization is you can rearrange supply chains. There isn't anything that we got from China that we couldn't get from somewhere else in the world or make here. It's just that there's literally no time to retool anything or redirect the container ships. Like we have to work with what we have right now, and that's a problem. Okay, and this is MEAWW. Coronavirus, men more vulnerable to infection than women. Scientists say smoking and poor immunity could be blamed. Well, as a tobacco user of many years, I'm definitely in that group, as no doubt many of you are. Although I'd have to say I'm absolutely amazed at the things that haven't gotten me, because most of us have the immune system of a John Deere tractor in my family, frankly.
They're giving a half-truth. Like I already said before, females are at less risk than men, but that doesn't mean that is like, that means that percentage difference is like something of a variation of 2%, which is sweet fuck all.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's not going to make any difference. It's still dangerous no matter who gets it.
It's been really, shall we say, downplaying, and I'll give you an example from actually today.
Okay.
Global News said we have blah 430 cases in Korea, which is a high jump, and it doubled in the last 24 hours. Which would the more honest, truthful answer for the news on this would be it's been doubling every day for 5 days straight. Instead, they just mention, it doubled today. No, it's been doubling for 5 days, actually. So they're downplaying, you know what I mean? Because psychologically speaking, that's a much bigger downplay from, and think of it in this sense, too. If I was a news agency, I would be trying to blow it out of proportion just because I want to get more views, right? So there's obviously somewhat of a government mandate on the media to not panic people.
Oh, they're gonna cap it, yeah. It's important to remember, too, though, where governments are concerned, and I am by no means a fan of governments of any size, large or small, okay? I consider them a necessary evil of life, and we don't even have to argue about the libertarians on the stream here. Okay, real quick from Vox. Half of South Korea's coronavirus cases are linked to a controversial religious organization. One COVID-19 patient attended Shinjeonji Church of Jesus services while she nursed a fever. Oh, boy. Yeah, the problem is where governments are concerned, they get threats of all kinds all the time. Their intelligence services hear about people with bombs or trying to spread, sarin gas or something like that weird cult in Japan 20 years ago. There's all kinds of things they have to deal with, and you just can't take them all seriously. You have to prioritize where you're going to put your attention, right?
Yeah, but pretty soon, people are going to get the opportunity to host a level 4 bioweapon in their body, and you can fart on a crowd of people and mass murder.
Yeah, or whiz on them. You know, yeah. So we won't be attending any scat shows or punk concerts anytime in the next 2-3 months. I'd say, Leaf. You and I will probably stay away from those for a while, and I certainly recommend everybody else do the same. Yeah, there's so many ways to transmit this thing. Like, you just become radioactive. Like, you become like a walking, talking, devilishly handsome chunk of plutonium, walking around contaminating people. This is not chill. This is really, really serious business. 1/10 of the world's population is locked down at home in China right now. This ain't no flu.
What we need to do to spread the flu is you get a humidifier, spit on it multiple times, and then to just place it somewhere in a public space.
Well, ironically enough, apparently if the air is more humid, it prevents the aerosol from traveling too far. It seems like it's low humidity that actually enables it to travel further when it's airborne or aerosol.
It still spreads in droplet form. So if you were spitting on a humidifier, it would spread like rapid.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've got a fan, like literally blowing it out of there. Trump was furious that passengers with coronavirus were brought back to the U.S. I would be too. I'm sure he didn't order it.
Everybody here.
Canada brought everybody because we love everybody. Hello. So the cerveza bug is coming to live in Canada.
Among the passengers.
Among the passengers, and I hope it likes poutine and snow. Among the passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship who were flown back were 14 American citizens who tested positive for the frigging Andromeda strain. The move took Mr. Trump by surprise. I am reasonably sure that a fly on the wall in that room when he took that call would probably have been killed by sonic boom. Because that's what I'd have done too. The U.S. has military bases all over the world. They did not need to come back to the lower 48, for God's sake. I don't know. Like, it's a big world, but you got to have a place for people that have basically turned, like I said, into walking, talking plutonium for a couple of months. They've got to go somewhere else. They didn't need to come back here. But this runs into a problem too with the size of nation states today. Okay, a place like China, which is a federation of probably 100 different nationalities. Russia, an enormous place, same deal. The United States, enough said. Canada, enough said. The Commonwealth, enough said. Okay, massive governments, which supposedly can bring all kinds of protections to bear on you. Unfortunately, what it is a series of silos, all separately funded, that aren't necessarily talking to each other. Okay, Business Insider. Wuhan is scrambling to fill 11 sports centers, exhibition halls, and other local venues with over 10,000 beds to create makeshift coronavirus hospitals. So 11 sports centers. So that's great. I guess Pearl Jam and Boston will be making comeback tours and playing those stadiums since they'll have captive audiences. Won't that be fun? A worker sets up beds at the Hongshan Stadium to convert it into a makeshift hospital. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the last couple of scenes from a TV docu-series that came on about 1983, just after I graduated from high school. It's called The Day After. It was about nuclear war. You ever see that one, Mike?
The only one I saw in that line was Threats.
Threats, yeah.
Did you ever see Threats?
No, I didn't see that
it's
one.
It's the
no.
same idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, The Day After, anyway. That's how it was. You had this makeshift hospital set up in a school gymnasium, and all kinds of burnt and irradiated, messed up people, right? And it was apocalyptic. It was a terrible thing. But these are interesting beds because they all got a desk beside them.
You're missing something important.
Okay, yeah, it's for homework. Okay, got it. Yeah, because nothing gets you through the flu like homework, I guess.
Hello?
Yeah. Well, hey, morale, right? Got to keep those grades up.
Can you hear me?
Study differential equation. United State. That's from Twitter. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but.
All right, we'll let him go.
Okay, well, Leaf, we're going to let you go and take another caller. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'll probably see you on Discord later tonight, pal, or tomorrow, okay?
Some important things.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first part, it's spreading in Iran. the temperature of Iran. A lot of people are saying, oh, when the summer hits, it'll die down. Look at Iran. 2, if you look at the amount of cases that China's been pumping out, why are they building more additional beds in Hubei province? If the numbers are nailing off and the recoveries are shooting up, it's a bunch of that. What I'm basically saying is the Chinese numbers are a load of crap. They're ordering an additional 30,000 beds in Wuhan, and they're filling up all of these stadiums.
Right.
Yet the officials are saying it's going downwards, and the recovery rate shooting up, so they should have less need for beds. And then here's another third part that you guys aren't maybe not aware of. Singapore changed the rules on what the definition of recovery is, and the definition in Singapore for recovered is showing no symptoms.
Of course. You can be completely loaded with the virus, but you don't have any symptoms. 2 thumbs up. That's
Singapore, which was being praised recently for their numbers in containment, in reality, they've been fudging and f***ing around with shit from the start, and they're just as bad as everybody else.
Oh my friggin' oath. This is just turning into a bad TV movie, isn't it? This is really something. It's unbelievable. I could see, in a way, if you know approximately how many days it's going to take for all these new cases to manifest, and you don't want them to continue to choke up your regular hospitals, then yeah, you got 2 weeks until a whole bunch more people are going to start coming down sick. You better get those beds built for them, like pronto. So regardless of whether they had this thing contained or not, they know they're going to have possibly 100 million people that could be coming in and out of their system to get treated, and they don't want them stinking up the regular hospitals with this stupid bug. So, it's probably not contained, but I could see why they would be doing that. Because obviously in 40 days, we'll all know exactly how many people got sick, right? Yeah, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll let you go, pal. Thank you very much. And we'll keep touch. Talk. Yeah, ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Oops, what do I do with my goggles?
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, go back.
All right. Okay, we'll go back to the New York Times. Spike raised fears another Asian country was losing control over the rapid spread of the virus, making it more difficult to avert a global pandemic. That's in South Korea.
And you would think South Korea would be a lot more, infrastructurally, medically sound than China is.
Oh, they'd be equipped for all kinds of things. Yeah, definitely. And more organized, ostensibly. Japan, how they handled the quarantine of the Diamond Princess, shocks me. Because you saw pictures of passengers, and either the masks weren't put on properly, Mike, or they were put on upside down. So either they just threw them on quick for the camera, or no one was supervising this quarantine procedure, which suggests to me that the Japanese really didn't want to get this stuff on them and probably didn't spend a lot of time on that ship. I'm inclined to think that the quarantine was a matter of, we'll dock it here and we'll throw a few boxes of masks to you and you put them on, okay? I don't know. It seems to me like they didn't apply themselves very well where this thing was concerned. I mean, this is something that's going to spook a lot of people, too, for obvious reasons. Nobody wants the Andromeda strain on them, okay? Like, neither do I, neither do you. So, total confirmed. What's that? Cases by country region. Region.
Let's go back to... This one in Italy is a huge shocker. 50,000.
Yeah, we're going
to
head over to northern Italy. What time are we getting to here?
8:52.
8:52. Holy, it's not even 9 o'clock.
The Mike of the Night pre-show.
You're going to get the song again in a minute, okay? Our pledge to you. In the town of Codogno, where the first patient identified in the northern cluster was in a critical condition, closed supermarkets, restaurants, and shops made the main street practically a ghost town. The few people outside wore face masks, which were coveted items after selling out at pharmacies. Last Saturday, civil protection officials said 79 people had contracted the virus, including the 2 who died and 1 who recovered. Of the remaining 76 people infected, 54 were in Lombardy, 17 in Veneto, 2 in Emilia-Romagna, 2, a Chinese couple from Wuhan, in Lazio, and 1 in Piedmont. Lombardy government authorities said the region's cases were traceable to a 38-year-old Italian who had not traveled to China, but it remained unclear how this man had been infected.
Yeah, and you know how far? Well, we look at 7,000 kilometers.
Yeah, that's a long way to go for that disease to travel. I don't know. Maybe there was some international love story going on there, if you know what I mean. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people are going to get infected by this bug, and they're not going to want to say how they got this bug the same way they wouldn't want to say how they got any other bug, if you get my meaning. Okay, who had not traveled to China, but it remained unclear how this man had been infected. 10 towns in Lombardy, thanks to patient 0 here, received orders to suspend non-essential activities and services. We'll carry on a little bit longer with this one. Luca Zaya, the Veneto regional president, said on Saturday that the contagion showed that the virus is transmitted like any flu, and that trying to pinpoint a single cause for the cases or to establish a link to China were no longer effective containment measures. You can get it from anyone, he told reporters. Apparently, this is a quantum bug. It just shows up anywhere in time and space, and it can take you over. That's good to know. You can get it from anyone. We can expect to have cases of patients who had no contact with suspected carriers. He added that while the virus isn't particularly lethal, it can be deadly for the elderly or people with existing conditions. And if we can scroll just one more paragraph to have a look there. Yeah, I'm not running the mouse. I'm hands off here. I'm the guidance system right at the moment. However, okay, and this is the part. The man who died in Veneto had not met the main risk factors for the virus when he was diagnosed with pneumonia 2 weeks ago.
That's scary.
That part is a little freaky. He had not traveled to China, nor come into contact with anyone who had.
Did he dream that he was in China?
Maybe he dreamed he was in China. Maybe it travels through dreams, right? Maybe it's some kind of, thing that happens and you just literally download it into your consciousness when you really wanted was like the scent of sandalwood or something. It sounds like it's something that can come up out of nowhere. I'm not buying that. I don't know about you. I'm not buying that. You don't get a virus without getting it from someone else. Unless he ordered some freeze-dried bat soup or something. I don't understand how that's possible. But what do I know? He had not traveled to China nor come into contact with anyone who had. Therefore, he was only tested for the virus after he did not respond to conventional pneumonia treatment, and by then it was too late, according to Francisca Russo, the head of healthcare for the Veneto region. Along with 8 other infected people, the man who died formed a cluster in his hometown of Voiganio, population 3,300. Any Italian speakers on here? Sincere apologies if I mangle any of these. Russo expressed relief that to date, none of the hospital personnel who treated the man have tested positive for the virus. Let me know if I'm too loud on here, guys. I'm not going to be talking all night. Okay, that's a break for you. Just let me know. Sometimes I hear playback, and when I've got my little headset on, and good God, I'm blowing the speakers out. Yeah, start eating bats. You'll be fine. Exactly. Build up immunity. Okay, get some mail order bats. Yeah. Don't get it from people because that's dangerous. Get it from a bat, and then you'll be fine. That's the key here. Just download some bat soup from Amazon and build up your.
Tell me you're joking. Your
thing. I'm joking. Of course I'm joking.
No, because somebody,
Yeah. No, don't eat bats. Just don't. Don't eat bats.
Is bats considered in the rodent family?
Yes, they're rodents.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not kosher. I know that. So, extra vitamins, population control is in effect. I feel well.
They've been talking about population control since the year 1000.
Population control, yeah. Glasses like this, I think, are way more effective population control than any kind of a virus, frankly. But that's a topic for another day. Yeah, they're pretty effective, both birth control, I can tell you that. Yeah, don't eat bats. Kosher bats, that's right. Bats. Only eat kosher bats. Lord bats. Humongous, exactly. Yeah. They gotta be blessed, and then it's different, right? Yeah, there's all kinds of things that obviously you could eat if you had to. Humans are omnivores. The reason we eat animals is because 95% of the plants and vegetation on this earth are inedible. That's why we have animals, so they can turn that inedible plant matter into usable protein for us. That's our hack. That's our killer app. It's called cows. Love cows.
What do you have to say to the? See, I'm a meatitarian myself.
A meatitarian, yeah, I am too. It's personal choice. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not for everyone, but I'm definitely a meatitarian. Yeah. As you are, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both into the whole meat thing.
That's right.
Good. Meat's grows hair on the chest too.
Animals give life, you know, and that's beautiful. And I'm happy to take all the life they have to give me, and I'm always thankful for it.
We got a minute left, and we're going to be running the song.
That's right. We got 60 seconds to the song. So if anybody needs to go and refresh your beverage, go do that. I'm just going to be rambling for another minute here. Hescoaterian. I don't know what that is, but it sounds really cool. Just posted the stream on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the Chronicle. We'll ask him if he wants to come on
first
after 9 o'clock.
Awesome. Yeah, Evan, are you available to call in anytime tonight after 9? Right after the song, maybe?